everyone, it's Margaret Manning here with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. My guest today is Ashley Koff. Ashley is a nutrition expert. She is a registered dietitian, written several books, and also has a program called Road Trip to Better Health. Super excited to have you here with us, Ashley. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I've got so many questions for you. As you know, we have a large community of women over 55, 60. And one of the things that's on their mind is, I bet, something you can help us with, which is losing some weight. It just seems like when you get to be 60, like something magical happens to your metabolism and it just is impossible to lose the pounds. What advice have you got for us?
Sure. Yeah, this is, it's a huge part of my practice for the last 20 years. And I think, one of the issues is, first of all, depending on when you are hitting 50s, 60s, is have I lost weight several times in my life, but unfortunately found it again? Or is this my first time that I'm battling weight loss or battling the weight gain? We tend to see belly weight gain, and that has a lot to do with hormonal changes. And I also think that just not enough attention is spent. So for anyone who has kids or loved ones in the 30s and 40s, really talk to them about that part and say to them, hey, I don't want you to, you shouldn't have to handle this, just be dealing with this, at my age. But for those of you that are, we want to have a conversation about it. So one of the most important things, and I focus on this with all of my patients that come in, regardless of if you're coming in for weight loss, is there are many ways we could lose weight, but we want to do it without compromising our health. And I think that's going to be the critical part, which is so many of the, and when I look at health and we talk about, as you do here, and I love it, that means like friendships, relationships. It means being able to have the energy to go out and also enjoy going out to dinner or enjoy, so we don't want to be in this like horrible diet space. But I also think we really need to pay attention first and foremost to how is my digestion. You are not what you eat. You actually are what you digest and absorb. Yeah. And the process of aging actually means that this digestion and absorption, things are happening to our digestive system. We're seeing actually a reduction in acid. I know a lot of people think that they're producing more acid or they might even be on acid suppressants. But a lot of those changes are actually impacting how your body is going to respond to what it is receiving. Yeah. So the first thing that I do is I do a digestive assessment. And I won't go through all of that, but it's things like, so are you going? How does it smell? What's it look like? And that's on my website, ashleykoffapprove.com. I won't go through that further. But a lot of times we have to tune up the digestive system before we do anything else on that part. So then the second part is to undo some of the stuff that we've been taught. So we've been taught a lot about calories and that if you want to lose weight, it's about fewer calories. Yes. I have women in their 50s and 60s. I had one woman at 75, she's athletic. She's still, really active, still working, like all of this. She was subsisting on about 600 calories. And I was like, oh my gosh, and still not losing weight. And so I think one of the things we have to understand is think about your body like a race car, not a street car. And what I mean by that is when the car gets to the gets right up to the starting line, it's going to have been assessed and everybody's going to put in, cleaned it out. It's going to have exactly what it needs in it, the right amount of gas, the right amount of air in the tires, and the right amount of oil in the engine. And there's not going to be a whole bunch of junk in the car weighing it down. So the analogy there is the gas is our carbohydrate, the air in the tires is our protein, and the engine oil are our healthy fats. And so the dirt in the car, we get rid of the dirt in the car by getting rid of with our non-starchy vegetables. So instead of thinking about calories, what we want to think about are better pit stops. So basically you start off with that, you go around the laps a couple of times, about 3 hours, and then you pit stop again. And the idea of not having too much at one time means that your body is actually going to be able to burn through and use what you've given it. Okay. So it's actually going to be what we want to think about. And I'll give you some quick and easy examples. I have people who will have an egg for breakfast. They'll have an egg, toast, and some blueberries. And they've been told, the blueberries are great for you. They're having an organic egg. They're having a whole grain slice of toast. And maybe that was working before. But for most of us, as we age, the blueberries are a carbohydrate and the toast is a carbohydrate. So I usually have you pick one of those. And what I'll have you do is save blueberries and have the blueberries with some pistachios about 3 hours later. By splitting it apart, that's going to do better for you. Now, let's say you have a cup of coffee with it and you've got milk in there. That milk is a carbohydrate, right? So we're starting to see where we could be having 2 or 3 servings. And those leftover servings are what's keeping the fat on or putting the fat on. So
and what you say, sorry, and what you say there actually is really important, I think, about being educated as to what these foods are, because when you just said blueberries were a carbohydrate, I didn't think that at all. I mean, in fact, what you described, having an egg and some toast and blueberries, I often have that for breakfast because I've thought blueberries were a fruit. They're supposedly superfood fruit. They're very good for you. So I never thought. So that's important, I think, to understand what is in the food you're eating.
Same thing with sweet potatoes. So that sweet potatoes are all the rage now. I like to make, instead of making toast, I make my sweet potato. So I do sweet potato toast, and you can put the egg on it, or you can put hemp seeds on it, or you could put a nut butter on it. But you have to remember that that's your carbohydrate. So I think part of it is just being able, so it might be instead of having a full sandwich, doing an open face sandwich. Or maybe instead of, if I go out and I want to have like a turkey burger, instead of having the burger on a bun, I have the turkey burger in a bowl of veggies with like sauteed onions and mushrooms and tons of, better nutrition, better be delicious. So make sure it tastes good. But then I can have on the side a glass of wine, or I could have some sweet potato fries. But notice I said or. So I think it's really about those balances in there. So we talked about digestion, and then we talked about nutrient balance. And I think the final piece is, at this stage of life, your body is not going to put up with any of the tricks anymore. So none of these tricks are going to work out. Artificial sweeteners, you don't get to have a high amount of sweetness and not have your body, not have it count from a sugar standpoint. Artificial colors, there's no reason for it. As you mentioned with blueberries, the reason they're a superfood is that blue is so important for the health of our body. But if I do Blue Lake number 5 or whatever, it actually may be irritating to my body on that part. And likewise, I tend to look for organic whenever possible, even if it means frozen organic, and that, or that piece, so that I can get better quality. And I also think you want to choose the food in a form closer to the way it exists in nature. So I actually don't use the term processed foods, because I think we get confused. Like a juice or a smoothie could be processed, but also so is, whey protein isolate, right? And so the term I use is kitchen processed. If you can do to a food in your kitchen, you might not do to it. I don't dehydrate in my kitchen, but I know that I could with a dehydrator do that in the kitchen, then you're going to be fine to consume something dehydrated. But what I don't want are these chemistry lab projects that are going to be overwhelming and irritating the system.
Okay. So I have a question about sweeteners, because artificial sweeteners, I've never personally used them, but I know a lot of women do. But there is apparently, and my son mentioned this to me, that there's this whole new class of artificial sweeteners that are plant-based, like stevia and xylitol, I think. Are they okay?
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got xylitol, we've got stevia, we've got monk fruit, which is also called lohan. Right. And I'm sure there's going to be one while I'm sitting here on the phone with you that is going to be, invented, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to cheat. We want really sweet from the time that we're very young. We want really sweet, and we don't want it to count on our bodies. It doesn't work. And I think the key thing to understand is that the quote unquote natural or plant-based sweeteners are hundreds of times sweeter, whereas a lot of the artificial sweeteners are thousands of times sweeter. But the hundreds of times sweeter does something difficult to us. If I'm having stevia, and let's say I'm having good quality, because there's also differences in the quality of the stevia. If I'm having that consistently, if every day I'm putting that in my coffee, or I'm putting that in my, I'm taking my yogurt and adding that to it to make it sweeter, when I'm going hundreds of times sweeter, I no longer think that an apple or a baked sweet potato is sweet. And so part of what it's doing is it's meaning that when I finish a meal and I have the blueberries, then I, say I had wild salmon and some beautiful greens, and then I have blueberries as my dessert. If I have those blueberries, people will say to me, yeah, but I'm still craving something sweet. So I actually make you do sweet retraining, right? We go back and we're like, if you don't think that blueberries are sweet enough for you, it means we've dialed up our sweet taste buds too high. Now, on the flip side, I am somebody, so sometimes in the morning, instead of just doing my lemon in my water, I like to do lemon water, and I'll put a little bit of stevia in there because it tastes like a great lemonade, right? There are reasons to do this, but I also know that I have that, and then I have as a counterbalance, I happen to like kimchi, and I like some of these, odd flavored things that will give me a counterbalance to the sweet. So I'm not opposed to, there certainly are better quality. I like the organic, I like the whole leaf. And I guess the other question is, if you are trying to lose weight, are you cheating to get there? And if you're cheating to get there and it's not working, we have our answer for us. It's not working, right? So I would so much rather you just enjoyed an amazing scoop of ice cream rather than these pints now that are made with the monk fruit and the stevia and things like that are like, oh, look at how much you can have, that kind of. Yeah.
I think it's really challenging though. You have to kind of make a decision. For example, I love turmeric drink. So I put some hot water, turmeric, and a bit of ginger. I maybe put some lemon juice in there. And then I think, okay, I'll put a teaspoon of honey. That's not good either, so I think it's a matter of choosing whether I'm going to put honey in there or a little bit of stevia or artificial sweeteners. So it's just, I think, like you say, being knowledgeable though, to make the choice.
Exactly. And I think you bring up a great point. So the World Health Organization says to us, we can probably, from a healthy standpoint, get in about 6 teaspoons of added sugar in the day. So the question is, how are you going to get those in? And that's actually a lot if you think about it. Yeah. I prefer, and that's if you're healthy, and I prefer that we don't do 6 all at once. So you break up like 1 or 2, that kind of a thing. I think that's going to do better for you. But honey provides all these great nutrients, right? And so I think that can be favorable for you to doing the other. Now, if you're pre-diabetic or we're working on, insulin resistance or we've got something else going on and your choice in there is to use a little bit of the stevia, that's going to be an okay option. I think what we want to do is match I started off saying better nutrition, better be delicious. And so that's so important. We want to make sure what you're having is delicious. And then the second part is that it's nutritious. And so I think when we get that balance in, we can make some decisions on that part.
Okay. This is super helpful. I think what's really important is we were talking about weight loss, and this is kind of the circle around it, which is it doesn't really matter about calories. It doesn't really matter when you eat. It doesn't matter how much you eat, as long as you've got the right proportions and the right, like you said, the right balance of protein, carbohydrates, fats, and that you're exercising, I guess. I mean, we can't get away from that.
We do have to be active. I think we have to be breathing. I think we have to be laughing. The only comment that you made that I'm going to disagree with is we do have to pay attention to the quantity. So better nutrition is going to be quantity, quality, nutrient balance, which I was talking about, and frequency. And so the idea of quantity, instead of portion control, which is a horrible word or a horrible phrase, right? Quantity is, think about your body, again, like that race car. And so if your gas tank, if you're putting too much in your gas tank at one time, it's just wasteful, it could be dangerous. But what we want to think about is instead, I'm going to pit stop again. So say that you have like an absolutely delicious muffin that you just totally want to have, and maybe you put a little bit of nut butter on it, or not a little bit, you put a tablespoon or 2 of nut butter on it. You could have the other half of that muffin at another point in time. It's just not about having the whole muffin at one time. That might be too much for that gas tank.
I'm glad you caught me on that. But when I was saying it, just in my defense, I was thinking of spinach and these things that you can eat like tons of, like 5 cups of it, and the nutrient dense kind of stuff. So I agree with you there. I shouldn't have said that because you're right.
The vegetables go to town on. I don't even count their carbohydrates. I'm
a big vegetable person. I love vegetables, so that's always great. You have given us such a lot of help here. Thank you. And I was going to ask you actually about number of calories. What do you think is because I know people will think about that. What do you think for an average 55, 60-year-old woman?
So what I would like to say to all of my wonderful women friends out there is none of you are average. You are all exceptional. I would never put a calorie number on a group. There is, in that way, there are so many. I mean, I have a 50-year-old client that just had twins. Like, I'm not going to put her on a calorie, that kind of a thing. I know, right?
Lovely.
Jaw dropping. So what I would say in that part is there might be a role for assessing your calories, but it's really low down on the list. So there are other things that we can do assessment-wise. But if you want some more specific calorie or nutrient guidance, pop on over to my website, or I do Facebook Live every Monday nights, depending on where you're located. Yeah.
Oh, send us those details because we'll put those in the article when we publish the video. But for you that don't know, that's AshleyKoff approved.com. That's your website. We'll put it up on the bottom there. So thank you, Ashley. Fabulous advice as always. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our 60andMe YouTube channel and also visit our website. We are a strong and dynamic community of women over 60. We're challenging aging stereotypes, and every day we share fascinating stories, interesting questions, and great conversation.